here we are, the iDRY Air and the AIRmini. So most of what you guys are gonna see here is me talking about the iDRY Air, how it works, how it dries, how airflow works. The reason why I added mini onto here is because everything we are doing with the iDRY Air is gonna be a scaled down version for the iDRY Mini. The way we move air, the way we heat it, and hopefully it's going to answer a lot of the frequently asked questions that I get, um, which are, is it a vacuum kiln? I'll jump into that one right now. It's not a vacuum kiln. I was going to add a video to this of a vacuum implosion. Mythbusters actually did it. If you YouTube vacuum implosion, they hook up vacuum to a rail car, a big cylindrical rail car, and they crush it with vacuum. If we could ever get one of these containers airtight enough, and make it so the welds held, it would crush like a tin can under vacuum. I think I did the math once. It's about 1,500 pounds per square foot of force. That's why our vacuum kilns are so expensive. It's a lot of steel, it's a lot of welding. So this is a good cost effective solution for lumber drying. It's not going to do everything that a vacuum kiln can do, but it can do a lot. So yeah, frequently asked questions. Can the unit be placed outside? Yes, unlike our vacuum kilns, this unit can go outside. Doesn't need to be insulated. We do recommend you have to insulate the box for efficiency reasons and for drying reasons. What has seemed to work really well is a closed cell spray foam. So closed cell means that it's a vapor barrier, and that helps protect the metal of the storage container. Yeah, and so first thing we need to do is we got to understand wood drying a little bit and what we're trying to do. So in wood, there's two types of water. So a wood is made up of cells. So a cell is they're cylindrical, they're vertical, they look like a needle. So inside of the cellular cavity, there is moisture. It's either in vapor form or in liquid, or there's glucose in some of them, but that is called free water. So in the beginning of the drying process, at low temperatures, free water comes out quickly. Same thing with air drying. Air drying is essentially taking up free water. It happens quickly. And then once we get to 25% moisture content, we transition to bound water. So bound water is the actual drying of the cellular walls. And that's kind of the magic spot, because that is where all the shrinking happens in the wood. And that's where all the degradation starts to happen, is when you get cells that are shrinking and pulling or compressing cells that aren't shrinking. So with our system, hey, just want to remind everybody, if you can put yourself on mute, please. So with our system, most of the venting happens in the first third of the drying process. So with low temperatures, and you can see how airflow works in this diagram here. And this is another key thing that we do differently than everybody else. So at low temperatures, we are circulating air, moisture's coming off the wood fairly quickly. And you can't see it in this photo, but we have vents on either side of the fan. So in one direction, we actually blow past the vent and create a negative pressure, and that becomes your air intake. And then we're forcing air towards the other side, and that allows us to open and become our exhaust. So in the beginning of the process, free water is coming out of the wood, we're expelling it from the system. And then as we start to get to the bound water phase, where the wood starts to shrink, the vents close and we run a higher humidity. So if you look at this drawing here, That's why this is the reason why we can put everything in this one box and we don't have internal fans you need to run. There's no internal vents that you need to run. You don't get a big pallet full of parts. It is all because the way we move air in this system. So, and you'll see we have a stack of wood that is narrower than the chamber. We blow air at a high velocity. So this is the same style fan. We've been moving air in a vacuum chamber with less oxygen for a long time, which is hard to do. So we move air around the wood and it builds up static pressure. So static pressure is where the air needs to, there's so much pressure pushing it that the air needs to decide to go another direction. And that's where it moves across the lumber back to the fan. And on the right hand side, you'll see an example of not a proper load because air always takes the path of least resistance. We need to make sure that the kiln is full. So this is going to bring me to another common question that I get is, can it be used on a 40-foot container? We can dry on a 40-foot container, but also that is a crap ton of wood. Like it needs to be either pretty much full completely, which is 8 to 10,000 board feet, or you're going to have to baffle the crap out of it. So if you want to dry on a 40-foot container, like you need to have a serious buyer of lumber because that's potentially 10 to 40,000 board feet a month of lumber that you're producing. You can't just throw a handful of boards in there and be like, oh, I'm just going to run it in my 40-foot container. It doesn't work that way. So in my next slide, I'll show you an example. This is baffling. On the left-hand side, I kept that picture because it was a really good job of it. But this is a vacuum kiln customer who baffled their load. And that's how they at the end of it, they create a wall, they block everything else. That forces the air to go through the center of the stack. Now, airflow is super important because when we look at drying, heat is what helps moisture move to the surface, and airflow is what removes moisture from the surface. Very, very important. And that's why we firmly believe that moving airflow in both directions, like we do with our system, gives you better quality drying and actually quicker drying times. Every 2 hours, our system will reverse direction. And you can see on the photos on the right, this is iDRY Airs. We use a center curtain to create the baffle. So we're basically separating the chamber into two halves. And in one direction, it blocks air, forces it through the stickers. And then when we reverse flow, the same thing. Now, whenever I had a customer that called me and said, "Hey, Paul, for some reason my wood wasn't drying evenly," I'll say, "Send me a picture of your stack." And they'd send me a picture of the stack, like the one on the left, and I'd see there was a big giant gap in the wood, and air just goes around it. Like I said, we need air to pull the moisture off the surface to dry it. So, very important. Like I said, 40-foot containers, that's a lot of lumber. If you do have a buyer, talk to us. We'll get you set up. You're going to need two iDRY airs, one on each side. And the way we actually build up static pressure in that setup is we run reverse airflow. So they're blowing at each other and that forces it through the stack of wood. So iDRY controls. So you get this kiln, you have your insulated container, you have the hole prepped, you bolt on the unit, you hook up your 3 wires. What's next? All right, this is what you're going to be looking at. Ah, how nice. Here's the hone screen. That's me. That's my typo right there. I'm owning it. Um, this is your home screen for the iDRY. Um, Sorry, I was just seeing if there's any chat here. And now I can't get rid of it. Anyways. So here's your home screen. This is what it looks like. You hook up power, How do I go back a slide here, Jim? You know how to use this thing?
Try the left arrow key, or just click on the slide before it. Yeah.
There we go. There
That's
we
actually the setup screen, by the way, too, and not the home
Yeah.
screen.
All right, perfect. All right, so here we are. This is the setup screen, not the home screen. So if you once you get into the system and you want to start, like, let's say your first load, and this is what I did honestly when Jim and the team built this system, I said I want to be a customer who's never used this system. I want to order some wood. So I ordered some green maple from somebody in close to town. I did an oven weight test. It was 34% moisture content there around. I loaded it in the kiln. I went and I navigated to the hardwood settings. So you see it highlighted in yellow there. So we have hardwoods, we have softwood, firewood, and mixed. So hardwoods, you can see our parameters that we set. So we have 160-degree temperature, 75% relative humidity, which is pretty high, 50% fan speed, and then minimum temp before the vents open. So that just means we don't want to waste heat. There's no point in opening the vents until it gets to 100 degrees to start venting moisture. And in hardwood mode, I believe it is in low power mode. So that means we cut out one of the elements and I hit the start button and I watched the graph, and over 2 weeks, temperature slowly went up, relative humidity slowly went down. And then once it got to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, I opened the kiln and I looked and I did oven weight test and checked with the Delmhurst moisture meter. All of the wood was in 7 plus or minus. It was awesome. It took a little over 2 weeks. Now, I know from experience in drying maple, we could probably dry maple faster than that. But that hardwood setting is a really good setting for somebody who doesn't have experience drying wood. It's a good starting point. Now, some ways that I could speed that up the next time is we could lower the relative humidity. We could increase the fan speed. We can take more of a manual approach to temperature. Um, all of those things can help speed up or slow down the drying process. All right. So dry times with these systems, here are some of the dry times that we're looking at. Now, I always talk about these kilns versus vacuum kilns when we're at trade shows. And I would really just ask yourself, what is your goal with drying? Do you feel like 90% of the time you're going to be drying material that's 2 inches and less, or and maybe some slabs once in a while, but you're okay with air drying them and finishing them in a kiln or bringing them to somebody with a vacuum kiln? Yeah, maybe this is a good system for you. However, if your primarily goal is to dry and sell slabs, it doesn't take much time to make a good case for getting a vacuum kiln. Let's just say hypothetically, in an iDRY air, you can dry 4 loads of slab a year, where in a vacuum kiln, you can dry 20. So that's kind of where you got to decide what's the best for you. Um, Now, do we have any questions out there, Jim?
Say that again, Paul?
Do we have any questions out there?
Not yet on the chat, but
Okay,
feel free,
don't
anybody,
be shy,
to
guys.
write in.
If you got questions, toss them in the chat. Um, yeah, so and the iDRY AIRmini is going to be a quarter scale version of this. So that means you already saw what static pressure looks like, baffling, um, heat, precision heat control. Um, it's just a quarter scale size. So no, you wouldn't be able to put it on a 20-foot shipping container. We're gonna have to build a box. These are really balanced systems because contrary to what Facebook tells me on all of our ads, it is more than just dumping heat into a box. It is the precision control of humidity, heat, and airflow that gives you really good wood drying. So in order for us to build a balanced system, the iDRY AIRmini needs to be sized appropriately. So the chamber needs to be a specific size. Now, if you want to be in business, and ideal, like if you guys buy a kiln, I promise you, whether you advertise or intend to, unless you don't tell anybody about it, you sneak it in under the cover of darkness, somebody at some point is going to ask you to dry wood because there is such a need for having wood dried out there. Now, let's take a look at the numbers on the iDRY Air, where we're $19,000 plus the price of your container, plus insulation, let's say 25 grand all in. Now, that system, you can dry easily between 4,000 and 12,000 board feet a month in that system. So if you charged 50 cents a board foot for drying, which is a really affordable price, that's competitive with the Amish, you can make a few $1,000s a month off something that's a $300 a month investment. I mean, guys go out, we see Harleys on the road all the time. These guys spend more than that on a Harley and we don't bat an eye. So from an investment standpoint, this thing will actually make you money and give you precision control, quality drying. It meets USDA heat treat standards right out of the box. Jim, I think I see some questions up there, maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you want to
Yeah,
take a
jump in.
minute.
What do you got?
So Calvin's asking, does the dry times in that list work for the mini as well?
Yeah, I
If you
mean,
want to take that.
so yeah, it should be the same dry times in the mini. We still have to, the reason why we haven't put out a bunch of stuff, we need to do airflow studies, we need to do heat studies. Um, we put everything through its paces here at iDRY, but I would say the dry times are gonna be pretty much the same as what we have here on this sheet.
Yep, exactly.
Yep,
There's a couple more coming in. What is the release date for the Air Mini? I
sometime this
can,
winter. Go ahead, Jim. You,
yeah, I mean, next, definitely in 2025, we're hoping the first half of 2025, but like Paul said, we're going to do all of the work to make sure that, like the rest of our products, the first unit we ship is as good as the last unit we ship, and that they're all fully tested and solid. So it's well in the process, but yeah, don't hold your breath. It's going to be sometime next year. And by the way, we've already taken deposits on like 22 of them. So the day we ship the first one, we'll kind of begin the lead time. We'll start shipping to the people who have already purchased before then.
cool.
Um, And then Paul, there's so I know that's really vague about the launch time, but that's the best we can do. We'll keep your eye on the website and um, if you've subscribed to anything with us or we'll be in touch. So as we have updates, we'll certainly let you know.
All right, I see
The
some,
electric usage, Eric
yep.
wants to know the electric usage on a 3 to 4 week red oak run. I guess maybe on the iDRY Air.
Yeah, so red oak, we did dry in 3 to 4 weeks. Um, and with red oak, it's higher humidity, it's lower fan speed. Um, so I would guess that the average would probably be around 2.5 kilowatts an hour for that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So motor loads are kind of funny where if you have a motor load and you decrease the speed by 10%, it's like a 20% efficiency gain in um, energy savings. So when we're running hardwoods and we're running at 50% fan speed, it saves energy. Um, but yeah, I would say probably around that 2.5 kilowatts an hour for
And Paul, I'll just add in for Eric, like what it really boils down to for folks is what does it cost per board foot to operate? And For some reason, all of the kilns we've ever produced, it seems to shake out to somewhere between 6 to 8 cents per board foot. Obviously, it's on the higher end. If you're in Hawaii paying their kind of electrical rates, or less expensive if you're sitting next to a nuclear power plant or something. But that seems to be the pretty good rule of thumb, even for the vacuum kilns for the air, within some range there. And also you you could add supplement like Paul said, the electric motor consumption. We've got as efficient as possible because we're doing some intelligent things with reversing airflow and reducing motor speed and airflow. In other words, not blowing a whole bunch of air around at a stage in the drying process when we don't need to blow a whole lot of air around. So we get to save a whole bunch of energy at that stage with the motor horsepower. But you have the electric heating elements that are coming on and off to maintain the temperature. You could certainly supplement that electric heat with hot water coils or any number of heat sources as long as it's within some control, and that would reduce some of your energy cost. But as it is out of the box, it's pretty efficient. Um,
We
Tom wants to know, can the mini be doubled up on either end of the 20-foot box, say around 4 feet by 4 feet by 16 to 20 feet? So let's say you had a side load 20-foot container, Paul,
yeah,
um, and a mini or a iDRY AIRmini on both sides.
yeah.
I'm sure you've had that question.
Yeah, so yeah, there's no reason why the iDRY Air Mini can't be a modular system. I would say based off um what we're doing with the iDRY Air and how much airflow we have and how much heating capacity we have for a 20-foot container, that two iDRY Air Minis is still going to be less than that. So your static pressure is going to be less, your heating capacity is going to be less. It may dry wood, it may take longer to dry wood.
Right. Yeah. If you have less
Yes, you
airflow,
have less
less
airflow.
heating,
So
less horsepower, you're gonna slow down the process. I would add, Eric, that is this for Tom,
yeah,
that it might depend a bit on what you're drying. So if you're drying something like red oak and maybe air drying that, there's just not a lot of water to be removed, and it's removed over a longer period of time compared to if you were drying a bunch of hemlock and you wanted to really get after it. Um, Pine is soaking wet and hemlock is soaking wet, and a couple of minis strapped to the side of a 20-foot container probably not going to handle that moisture out fast enough. You would have been, and if you then add a third and a fourth mini, you really should have just bought a iDRY Air in the first place. Um,
yeah,
so I would
you
say,
can
like
slow
Paul said in
down
the
an
beginning,
iDRY Air
yeah, better to slow
infinitely.
down an iDRY Air. It's going to be more cost effective in the long run than a whole bunch of minis. Like Paul said in the beginning, if you're thinking about an iDRY AIRmini, you should be envisioning constructing a little insulated box in your shop, for 1,000 board feet or less, a little pile of wood in the corner, and it's going to do a really good job at that level. If you doubled them up and doubled that size to maybe a couple thousand board feet in a little bit bigger insulated box, okay.
Exactly.
But you start getting into the shipping container size loads, you should just get the air that we already have on the market.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree, Paul?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So, and like I said, it's all about we appropriately size these units for the space that we're giving you. So you're right. Two airs would be designed for twice the cubic feet of a single air mini.
Right,
So two air minis would be
exactly.
twice the cubic feet of that.
Yeah,
Uh,
the mini is a quarter of the air
yeah.
and its performance. So expect to dry 1/4 of the wood in
Uh,
the same time frame, but in the quarter of the capacity. So divide everything by 4 for the mini. And obviously, if you got 4 minis, you should have just bought an air.
yeah. And Peter
Um,
Duncan asked,
yeah, Peter's got something about cost we kind
900
of
a
touched
month
on,
in
but
Connecticut. That seems expensive. Um, that seems expensive, but let's say it is. So $900 for a month of electricity, and let's say cut it in half. We did 6,000 board feet of lumber in that month.
Right. Divided by 6,000 board
Yeah,
feet or
there's
board foot, you're
15 cents a
doing,
board foot for
yeah, you're a little on the high side, but I don't think
still.
you're breaking the bank either.
And you could ideally you could double that capacity depending on what you're drying. So it goes down from there if you dry more wood. Is there needs for maintenance or replacement of the fan heater? So it's the same as our vacuum kiln, Nick. We there's grease ports on the motor. It's the same kiln duty rated motors we use in our vacuum kiln. So grease them every 2 to 3 months. And we build the chamber out of, or the iDRY air itself out of stainless steel. The heating element, honestly, I've been here for 3 or 4 years now. I don't think I've ever had a call with a bad heating element. So like everything we do at iDRY, we build for continuous use and to last ideally a lifetime. Um,
Derek was asking about power connection for the iDRY Air Mini, the iDRY Air, the iDRY Standard vacuum kiln, the iDRY Plus vacuum kiln. They are all single phase, Derek.
yep, 60
220 single
single
phase,
phase, uh, 240 single phase.
yeah, 220, 240 single
Yeah.
phase, 60 amps.
And the
Which
air,
but the
yes,
Air Mini is going to be half that. We'll
30.
have it'll be a third. It'll consume much less. It doesn't consume 60 amps. The Mini will not consume 30 amps, but that's going to be the breaker size you should plan on as a 30 amp breaker for the Mini. But
And
yeah, all single phase.
Derek Tucker, I get this a lot. Derek Tucker asked single phase versus three phase.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying.
Yeah,
So
so
single phase. Yeah.
yeah, and we use a VFD, so it's a three-phase fan motor that we use a
Hmm.
variable frequency drive on, so it's still very efficient.
That's
Uh,
a really good point. And it also means it's a really good motor. It's a kiln duty three-phase motor that's built to be very high temperature, corrosive environment. It's not some rinky-dinky little single phase motor for the iDry Air or any or the Plus or the standard vacuum kilns. They're solid motors and three phase. And because of that, we can, as Paul was saying, we can speed them up and slow them down. We can reverse airflow, which anybody who's drying wood with airflow who's not reversing their airflow should be really second guessing what they're doing because you're just heating one side of the pack more than the other all the time.
Yeah, there's a moisture gradient from one side of the pack to the other. That's the
Yeah.
biggest thing with airflow and reversing it is even side drying on both sides. So we got about 6 minutes left. I just unmuted Lewis. He's got a question to ask. So go ahead. You got the floor.
Thanks, Paul. So I don't work with lumber. My company is a manufacturer for bamboo utensils. So what I was thinking is that I could use the mini to dry up the bamboo after it's been sanitized. In order to sanitize it, we expose it to steam. So I just wanted to make sure if that could be an option.
Yeah.
Would it work for bamboo? And I imagine it would require some adjusting on temperatures. I don't think you would expose bamboo to the same temperatures and process as you would for lumber. But maybe
Well,
it could work out.
if the bamboo's already been kiln dried, when it's steamed to be sanitized, all you're adding is free water, and free water comes out of the wood pretty easy. So there shouldn't be a problem with using the iDry Mini or the iDry Air, depending on what your capacity needs are to remove that moisture pretty quickly.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah,
Paul, Holman's asking, our buddy Nick, I assume, is
yeah,
asking about maintenance, and we kind of touched on that, but I just wanted to make sure we fully addressed him.
yeah,
His
yeah.
question was,
So
do we pull out off the plastic box to service it?
no, everything is
No,
done from the interior. So you can just take off. There's an aluminum plate that covers it. It's just like the vacuum kiln, really. So
exactly.
there's an aluminum plate that covers the fan move that out off with 4 screws, and you have full access to everything right there.
Yep. And with the mini, it's going to be a little bit different access, but it's going to be very easy. Since that's such a tiny little unit, it likely will be that you kind of pull off the plastic box, you'll expose all the guts, and servicing it will be super easy.
Yeah, we'll make it easy to service. Not like these new vehicles that come out.
Yeah, this is not the Tesla.
Yeah.
We have 4 more minutes. Any
Yeah,
questions?
4 more minutes.
I know that you're still sort of on a research and testing phase on the Mini. Um, would it be possible to get a like some sort of quotation or estimate on PDF that shows maybe the shipping cost? I'm not sure if that's something you control or are able to um, know beforehand.
We
I
don't
live
know
in Puerto Rico, so we would have to import it to Puerto Rico.
I don't think we know the final weight yet on the unit, and that's going to be a factor in shipping. Um,
They're going to be small though.
Less than 80 pounds, so whatever UPS
No, a little bit more than that,
is
but they're
it?
going to be, yeah, it'll probably be sent, say, UPS freight. Um, but getting it to Puerto Rico, it, there's a couple of ways to do it. Air freight would be the fastest and more expensive, but you're talking about hundreds of dollars. You could put it on a boat and get it there slower for a bit less, but either way, we send all of our kilns all over the world all the time, but the mini's going to be a piece of cake. We can, if you want to get in touch with Paul with your contact information, he can keep you updated with a quote, but it's going to be super simple.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, somebody on the call bought a mini while we've been talking, so thank you very much.
Calvin purchased one at the Ohio show. So,
Oh, cool.
Calvin, we are getting super close on that.
Actually, 2 people bought a mini.
Yeah, so we are getting really close on the dimensions and the boxes. And since you already have a deposit in, you are going to be one of the first people to get any new pictures of the unit, any any new developments, any specifications. You're going to get it personally before anybody else. So
Hey,
we'll let you on the
Paul, Eric has a great question before we lose time here. I just want to jump in. He's asking, would it make sense to use the air to pre-dry walnut or white oak or other hard to dry hardwoods before
yeah,
you put it in, say, the iDRY Plus vacuum kiln? I love this idea. I've
yeah.
always loved this idea. It was one of the motivators I had in coming up with this iDRY Air. As a pre-dryer, it's perfect, and it's you lower the fan speed, raise the humidity in the controls, lower the temperature, and now you are pre-drying these really difficult to dry hardwoods in a much more controlled environment. So they'll be better pre-dried before you finish them in the vacuum kiln. So for those thicker oaks and so on, I wouldn't want to do it any other way. You stick it outside in Mother Nature in the rain and snow, and you
Let the
know how that
bugs get
goes.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult. So yeah, definitely, Eric. It's a great idea.
Awesome. So, minute left. I want to remind everybody, if you have even want to think about being in the wood drying business or even part-time drying business, just go with the air. I know it's more money, but the ROI is stupid. If you think we're adding a minimum of $1 per board foot of value to each piece of wood we kiln dry, that's the minimum. The ROI is super quick. You're going to let
Yep.
somebody else pay for your kiln and then pay for your car payment at bare minimum. If you just want a little hobby, you just want to have a little box in your shop and have fun and make some projects for your family, yeah, get the AIRmini. But
And before we go, Holman is asking if we can sell it as a complete package with a container, and we do. So if you go on the website, you'll see you can buy the whole kit caboodle.
we've been building them. Yeah, we've been building a lot of them, surprisingly a lot of them.
Thanks for
Lastly,
everybody showing up, and you have a
yeah,
second.
$1,000 off this month for the iDRY Air. If you put in if you came to this thing, you put in a deposit for the AIRmini, we'll make sure to throw a hat, shirt in your box when we ship it. So thank you everyone. Hope this
Thanks,
helped.
everybody.